Yo, what up guys, it's Flark. And the DK isn't super great right now, so I've decided to main absolutely everything else. Realistically, I did manage to get, I think 24 to 3k on every single spec class last season in Solo Shuffle. Solo Shuffle was very inflated, but I know a lot of people are trying to do that. I think that would be most people have jobs and they work for a living and they don't have all day to play this game. So 2400 would be a nice thing to have. That's when you get legend, and that's pretty cool. So I figured I would go through each spec that I play and give you guys a rundown in the discussion style that I think resonates with a lot of people. So get ready for a stupid amount of YouTube videos for this 10.1 patch. And we're starting things off with Fury Warrior. Fury Warrior got some buffs, and it was in a weird spot the whole last season. So buffs and gear, which it scales actually very well with because haste and mastery are both fantastic stats for Fury, have put it in a good spot, I would say. Also, percentage health-based heals do very well with subsequent seasons because you get more stam than you get anything else. So blah, blah, blah. Fury's in a good spot. Let's get into it. Starting off with gearing. So gearing this season is extraordinarily easy, which is great for people who have lives and can't spend their entire time devoted to figuring out the nuances of this stuff. Why it's so easy is because they nerfed crit damage and healing again, which means before it was pretty much terrible crit as a stat, but fringe cases on specs that like really needed, like had crit interactions, now it's just terrible. Now I don't think even classes that rely on crit can even play it, so tough luck, right? So what that means is you will just get haste and mastery on every single piece, some combination of both for every spec. And for Fury, it's very simple. They're both so good. Mastery for burst damage, and then haste is just the best Fury stat because of rage gen and autos. And man, auto attacks do so much of your damage for Fury. But faster globals and faster resource generation and spending is just good. It's just really, really good. It even lowers the cooldowns of abilities from time to time, which is incredible. So it's just your best stat. And then the versatility you get from your PvP gear. In fact, last season, we got all the versatility we needed from PvP gear, and your PvP gear is only getting higher item level this season, which means you're actually going to be aggressively finding ways to remove some versatility because you have more than enough. In fact, let me go show you what my spread looks like when I hit the dummy. So I'm already at, so if you know, 30% is the versatility soft cap, which means it starts DRing here. Well, I'm at 31%, which means that's going to answer a very important question that I know you guys do have when you're coming into a video like this. What about the tier set? Do we use it? Do we not? You know, the stats aren't so good, Flark. It's missing versatility. Great. Great. That is a great thing, right? Because you are already at a point where you have more than enough. So losing some versatility is actually a benefit to you, and you get the Senate bonus. So that's an easy question too, right? So far, everything we know about gearing is so straightforward. You're going to get mastery, haste, mastery, haste, haste, mastery, right? So every piece of honor gear and then subsequently conquest gear has either a haste or a mastery option. You just choose the one that's not crit, right? And if it is haste and mastery, it's very simple. You could just pick whichever one you have maybe too little of, because you get a ton of haste from your insignia, and weapons have haste or mastery on them. So whichever one you have way too much of, just grab some more of the other one. You can switch out your gems and enchants accordingly. I think haste is a little better, but like, man, look at this. Look how much haste I have when I start doing my rotation. Now I'm a 45%. I just started. Now I'm a 48%, right? So you have haste, right? So you can just find what do you have too much of and then get some of the other, because you pretty much have a choice on every single piece. You have a choice with enchants and you have a choice with gems. And you'll get more gems as the season goes on. So very simple. Haste, mastery, every piece that you can possibly get. Then, as I said, you're going to want that tier piece. Now, here's a trick. You guys might not know this. You have to go to, in order to find the tier piece, and like in the dungeon journal, it's really weird. You have to go to Shadowlands in your adventure journal, then go over to loot, and the most recent tier set will be right there. Isn't that crazy? So you can actually see what all the pieces have really quickly for stats. Now you can see I already got the shoulders. They have haste and mastery on them. Fantastic. And then chest, haste first. Those are great stats. Haste main stat. That's very good, those gloves. And then finally, you'll have to choose between a piece with crit main stat haste or crit main stat verse. And you know why that's bad, right? Because crit is a terrible stat. But it's only the last piece. And to get one piece with suboptimal gear for an entire 4 set of value, yeah, of course you're going to do that because it's just one set of stats. And plus, you will pick this one, the head, right? Because what that does is it drops some more verse. And thus, the difference between overcapped verse and crit is not really that much because overcapped verse is DR'd and crit is bad in PvP, right? So they both have a problem. So you get this piece, sacrifice some verse so you're not DR'd anymore, right? And then you grab 4 set. Easy. So let's recap. I know I just threw a lot of information at you. So let's recap everything. Every piece of gear is going to have versatility on it. You're going to do haste and mastery on every single piece except for exactly the tier helmet, which has to have crit. Then you'll get tier helmet, tier shoulders, tier chest, and tier gloves. Literally perfect. Haste main stat verse. We got haste mastery. It's all good stuff. That will be your 4 set. Of course, you want 2 two-handed weapons, one with Sophic Devotion and one. I like using one with this wafting devotion, right? Because haste is a fantastic stat. It's multiplicative stat, which means the more sources of haste modifiers you have, the more haste you get from each modifier. Kind of hard to explain, but it's like if you have 30% generation and then 30% generation, right? You're not adding those two things together to make them 60%. It's 1.3 times 1.3 of 1.3. So it ends up being more than 60%. It's not so imperative that you know what's going on, rather that you just take my word for it, and having a lot of haste modifiers is really good. Plus it gives you speed, and zooming around as Fury with all the movement speed modifiers you have and the speed enchants is also really good because it's hard to peel you, as you know, from Fury Warriors sticking right to Clothy like it is glue, okay? Finally, you want to grab this first. What are these? The Infurious Boots from before. They used to be the CC reduction, but now they are when you CC somebody or interrupt them or dispel, which you cannot do, you get primary stat. That's just a ton of primary stat. It's a decent amount of time for 10 seconds. It's good uptime because it's every 30 seconds. And it's very accessible. All you have to do is kick somebody, so stop getting juked. I do that too. Or you press the Stormbolt keybind. And when you press the Stormbolt keybind, you get more damage. That's really good because generally you want to do damage in a Stormbolt. Easy, bum, done. All right, enchants we've been dealing with for the entire expansion. They're all the same. I'm not talking about that. That would be way too long. And then the Insignia, I already talked about that. So that's all of your gearing choices. Okay, cool. That's it. I know I talked about it a lot because that's what I do, and that's why sometimes people yell at me. But that's all set in stone. That is what you run. So if you just watch that section a few times, you will have a perfect, and I do mean perfect, set of gear. Now we're getting into the real bread and butter, right? The talents. This is what you really care about. So I'm going to give you 3 talent builds. 1, a very standard single target talent build. 2, a really goofy one-shot oriented talent build. And 3, a cleave one. Okay, so let me maneuver around here real quick. Oh, there's a better way to do that for sure. And that's the better way to do that. So we're going to start with the standard build because that is the one you'll probably be using the most. And the standard build has you going down. So if you're familiar with Fury, all of this stuff at the beginning is pretty much required. In fact, that's the case with almost every spec and every class even, that all the stuff at the beginning is required. What you do is you get your defensives, your major offensive buttons or cooldowns like Rampage, Recklessness. I mean, these are major offensive cooldowns. So you never really have to talk about these things much. But once you get down to the left and the middle, and then, of course, the capstones, you have more choices. So let's take a look at what those choices are. First, I generally like to start with capstones because they define the build. Now, this is Annihilator. This actually replaces one of your buttons with auto attack damage and rage generation, which considering, you already have so many impactful globals to press, as Fury when you're keeping uptime on somebody like Bloodthirst and Rampage and Odin's and even Slam, but we'll get to that in a second. Not really so much in this build, but in another one that I'll show you. Yeah, for this one, Bloodthirst, Rampage, Odin's Fury, Execute procs. And Bloodthirst is literally with all your haste, like a 2-second cooldown. So you can actually just spam this every global. It really is helpful to have Annihilator because you're not going to be able to press this much anyway. So it just bakes damage into your kit and rage generation into your kit with almost no downside. So that is effectively the core mechanic of the build. And then the other 2 capstones are just as much power as possible. So you get Odin's Fury, which has synergies over here. with your avatar. You get Odin's Fury increases your attack speed and damage, which is just great because a lot of Fury's damage is white damage, and that's really powerful. And then you get the Reckless Abandon Unbridled Ferocity combo, which is a staple of pretty much every Fury build. The synergies here are just absolutely ridiculous. You're rampaging all the time because of your insane rage generation and how much you have access to Bloodthirst, which then gives you Recklessness all the time, which then empowers your Bloodthirst all the time, which allows you to just Bloodthirst, Rampage, over and over with massive modifiers and empowered Bloodthirst the entire time. Pretty remarkable. This entire left side here is a bleed package, and it is very, very, very good. It's very good because it interacts with your capstones over here that you absolutely will be using, and the output is just surreal. So you get Bloodthirst, this is bleed, this increases your bleed damage, this increases your Bloodthirst damage, which we just talked about how much you'll use that. This makes your auto attack damage really high, which we just talked about how useful that is with Dancing Blades. That's your Mastery, which is just overall damage, and that's effectively the whole build. Because this middle row is just more Rampage damage and more haste, which are fantastic. And then there's one choice that I would like to talk about on the right side. Here is the Execute package, which allows you to execute earlier, and your executes make your executes do more damage, which means if you get an execute proc from sudden death into another execute from like them being at 35% into another execute proc, and with the amount of haste you have, by the way, this happens all the time, the third one is going to have 30% more crit chance, and that's how you land these massive executes. But of course, you could drop that, but we got to do it the right way. And you could add it all to Vicious Contempt. So watch. See what I just dropped? I just dropped the Execute package, and instead I put it all into Vicious Contempt, because we just talked about how absurd Bloodthirst is, and Bloodthirst dealing 50% more damage is absurd. Now, of course, it's got a health-based requirement. This is not all the time, or you would pick it all the time. But both of these kind of have some finishing power, right? Execute finishing power, Bloodthirst finishing power. So, and both of them could have value at any point during the game. If you just get like a large amount of burst and then press Bloodthirst as part of your rotation, it's just going to hit 50% harder. Then the Execute one, again, it can get value from sudden death. So it's not necessarily at 35% health only. So you can see why that's a little bit of a toss-up. And those are both really good. So whatever you have more value with in your games, if you find that people are staying at 35% and you really think that the finishing power from Bloodthirst would be valuable, or if you just want a little bit of the consistency to your big executes that you get from Execute procs, choose between those. I give you the entire build, just one choice, okay? Only one choice. So there you go. All right, so now we're going to look at the left side. I'm not going to talk about this too much because the warrior utility is very, very understood. It's like, it's really known what you have as warrior utility. You have Intervene to take physical hits from your teammate. This is very powerful for taking either CC, like a kidney shot or a stormbolt, or just damage. It's a great button. Rallying Cry, this is a major defensive cooldown, and you can make it even bigger with Inspiring Presence, and even a PvP talent we'll talk about soon. Auto attack damage, we talked about how good that is. Stormbolt is utility, Fear is utility, Spell Reflection is utility, Leap is mobility, Double Charge is in here. There it is, double time, that's mobility, Leap, cooldown reduction and speed, that's utility. Piercing Howl, that's slow, base utility. This is a get out of sap free card, right? And Fear. And Succubus, Sleep. Impending Victory is a massive heal. Movement speed increase, we already talked about how good that is. This is part of how absurd your rage generation is, because not only do you have absurd rage generation, but you also refund rage on Rampage that you're pressing literally all the time. Shattering Throw is a massive utility button, though if you have nothing to shatter, right? Like no bubble, no life cocoon, because you can use Wrecking Throw into Dark Pact and life cocoon and it actually does obscene damage, right? Or no bubble or no block. If there's somehow none of that on the opposing team in a solo shuffle or something, just swap this out for Leech. And it's just a good heal. It's a good overall heal. You do a ton of damage, so then you would do a ton of Leech healing. Fantastic, right? That's all you have to do. Another heal, another bit of self-sustain, another bit of strength, right? And then you always go these capstones. One is Avatar, which is a huge offensive cooldown. You cannot run something else. This is just too good. And then the other one is just giving you Odin's Fury when you press Avatar and giving you Avatar when you press Odin's Fury. So, God, just so much power baked into every button press. Your modifiers are obscene. Finally, you have what I already talked about is Thunderous Roar. This is a huge damage button that applies a huge bleed, and this even increases your other bleed damage. So now you can see the synergies here, right? So this is a bleed package that increases this, and then this has a bleed package that increases this. Wow. So clearly they go hand in hand. And finally, you just have dual wielding damage increase. That's just a flat damage increase, right? And that's your setup. Now, of course, all of this will be linked in the description. You don't have to just listen to me go, blah, 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 right? And just go, you can just copy and paste it in. You guys know how to do that by now, right? Import? Okay, good. Fantastic. Okay, so that's standard. That's standard. All right. Let's apply it just to make sure that everything saves. And then we're going to go to crazy. It's the exact same build, but comical. That's what I named it. Okay, and this is why it's comical. There is a talent called Storm of Swords right before Annihilator. So you have to get this to run Annihilator, which pretty much everybody does, if not literally everybody. So you have to get this. And it increases the damage of Slam by 100%. Right? And it has a cooldown, but that doesn't matter because you have so many buttons to press. You never need to really press Slam anyway. You just can if it's good. Well, how do you make it good then? This makes it do 100% more damage. What else could you do? Well, with two-handed weapons equipped and the talents Barbaric Training, which is Slam does 20% more damage, and then Crushing Force, which is Slam deals an additional 60% damage and even has more crit chance. Oh my God, right? With those talents all together, Slam actually starts hitting pretty hard. But even that wasn't enough. Even that isn't enough. It still wasn't really worth pressing until the PvP modifier. That's right, there is also a PvP modifier on Slam, which they always talk about it as an arms buff, but it is not, and I will prove it. This says 18,000 damage, doesn't it? We can read, right? You guys can see this, 18,000 damage, okay? Now what does it say? 46,000 damage, right? Now some of that is from getting more stats from your gear. But then the other bit of it is the 50% damage modifier. Now, there was a damage modifier on it before 10.1. They made it even bigger. And I think with that final PvP modifier addition, plus all of the stats we're going to be getting, all funneling into, now we have more mastery than we used to have, and we just have more overall stats. I feel like the value of Slam has just reached that point where you could play this gimmick, but it gets a little funnier. So first, you put all the Slam package together, and it makes you sacrifice all your utility. That's why nobody runs this crap, right? So that's why it's called comical, because it's stupid. But it's really funny because you add one more tool, and I promised I would talk about PvP talents. Death Wish. This also got changed in 10.1. Perfect timing, right? This used to be very difficult to manage. It was like 5% with 10 stacks, which means you would constantly be having to stack it up in the beginning, and it was so difficult to kind of just wait around and do nothing, and if it ever dropped or you had to drop it, stacking it back up was a pipe dream. But now, not only can you stack it faster, you can also let it drop if they see you. And then anytime they swap to you, you can just be a regular Fury Warrior again and heal yourself regularly and not take extra damage. And the second they swap off you, like you have an Aflock on your team or a Shadow Priest or a Destro or something that requires their attention, you can quickly stack it back up because just one button press is 10% dam. 2 button presses is 20% dam, right? It gets crazy when you can stack it up so quickly with only a 4-second cooldown. You can actually mold how much damage you take and how much extra damage you do, right? Based on if they're going you or not. So, you run the cringy Slam stuff and no utility, then you run something even cringier, which is Death Wish. And you were rewarded with, and I'm not kidding, I hit a 135k Slam in PvP. That is a generator, by the way. This generates rage. It costs nothing and it generates rage. For 135k, 100k Bloodthirst, 112k Execute, right? Rampage, every tick together is probably 100k. Here's what that looks like, by the way. You get a little stack, right? and it's just 4-second cooldown. Right? So you could just stack it up while you're waiting, or while you're doing your rotation. It costs no resources besides some of your health, as you can see, but this looks brutal, but when you have a healer, that's really only like a 20k hit. You're getting hit for a lot harder than 20k, and well, it's more like 50k when you have your PvP gear on, but again, you can heal through it. There's no problem. So now you have 50% damage done. So when you have 50% more damage done, your abilities look like that. You see how this is 2 trillion DPS? Do you see this? This is 150k single target DPS. Do you see this? Now it's 160k single target DPS. Do you see that? 170k. Do you see that now? 170k DPS single target. Yeah, you seeing that? Yeah. This is what your abilities look like when you have the gear that I have. Mastery, tons of it. Still tons of haste. This crazy all-in one-shot build. And Death Wish. So, you could do that if you wanted to. I told you, it's comical. It is comical how much you will, if you can find a way to manage the stacks appropriately and not be silly and be like, oh, they killed me, Flark, it doesn't work. Yeah, well, think, use your head, okay? But if you can manage your stacks appropriately and find a way to get in there, and maybe you'll have to enrage regen first global, maybe you'll get a pain sup first global. God, if you get PI from a priest, it's absurd. You could delete somebody from 100 to 0 in maybe 2 seconds. Just throwing that out there. One more build for you, just a real quick. This is a very, very simple change on the single target build that we started with, the standard one. It is all of the exact same talents, so no, I am not going through all of them again, except you are running this part of the Odin's Fury line. It enrages you, deals 10% more damage, and grants you 4 stacks of Whirlwind, because now you go down Whirlwind. You grab Improved Whirlwind and Meat Cleaver, which makes whenever you press Whirlwind, it does more damage, and also it makes all your single target abilities hit AoE. So anytime you're going to be cleaving double melee, or you could even kill a ton of BM pets or demo pets, or there's just like a DK on your team, he's going to be grip stunning everybody together. Anytime you can get cleave value, you run this variant, right? It is so simple. Watch this. I'm just going to hover over for a second. Look what changes. Almost nothing. Almost nothing. That's all you have to do. You take this talent, you swap it to the one on the right, you grab these two instead of these two, or those two. And now you have pretty much the entire AoE toolkit of Fury, because that's what it is. You press Whirlwind and all of your abilities do AoE damage now. So you'll just rotate that in. So let me show you real quick. You are doing, I'm just hitting the PvP dummy so you can see the actual numbers. You're getting that Whirlwind stack from Odin's Fury, then Whirlwind, Rampage, Bloodthirst, Bloodthirst, Rampage, Whirlwind, Bloodthirst, Rampage, Bloodthirst, Rampage, Whirlwind. Oh my god, you just do so much damage. Throw a Thunder's Roar in there, right? You just use Whirlwind on cooldown to generate these stacks of single target doing AoE damage, and now everything cleaves. You can see, cleaved every dummy, unlimited dam, unlimited pressure, all instant, all easy to get off, all very difficult to peel and to deal with. That's all my talent builds, and all of them will be linked below. The final thing we talk about when it comes to talents is PvP talents, of course. Slaughterhouse. This is a very good Mortal Strike with our haste, right? It has a huge ramp up. It's only 3%, and it stacks 12 times. But each Rampage hit adds 4 stacks, right? Let's take a look at that real quick so you can take my word for it. What you do is you hit multiple times with Rampage, and each one, it's not like a Rampage use watch. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So you can see that. And with the haste you have in the rage generation, if you've seen from all of my examples, this stacks up insanely quickly. So you can actually get this to 36%, and it's 20 seconds. So you can get this to 36% very early, and then it's just a 36% MS the entire game. And yeah, that's higher than any other MS effect in the game. So you always run that effect. Even if somebody else has Mortal Strike on your team, you should probably tell them if they can take off Mortal Strike to take off Mortal Strike. Like DHs can take off their Mortal Strike, and it's just a free talent for them because yours is just better realistically overall. Furthermore, you have tons of utility options. Warbringer used to be a staple, but they nerfed that a lot. It used to be a staple of damage. It probably still does decent damage, and the root's not bad. They definitely nerfed this a lot. So now you have options like Battle Trance for healing and rage generation. Absolutely fantastic. If you are playing against a Frost Mage or a Survival Hunter or a BM Hunter, Anything with a lot of roots, absolutely run Blood Rage. This is just a root break. And that is awesome because roots are brutal for warriors, and arms warriors can't do anything about it, but Fury Warrior has a button they press on a 20-second cooldown to just remove all of them. Enduring Range got changed, and now it just gives you wreck when you're suffering movement impairing effects, which is like all the time. So yeah, you could just get perma wreck if you want it, but you pretty much already have perma wreck. So this is just like if you're getting kited really well and you don't feel like using Blood Rage, you could just get recklessness from it. And if you have a very, very strong suspicion that their team is going to be one-shot oriented, like a DK Frost DK Go or a Destro Lock, right? You can just run Master and Commander, because with Rallying Cry and then the talent that buffs it, Master and Commander makes a massive third PvP talent that just keeps you alive in tough situations, because it gives you a shorter cooldown on an already buffed Rallying Cry and then buffs it even further. So I don't think I have to explain why that's good. Disarm on Warbreaker, Pillar of Frost. Demolition combined with Wrecking Throw is what you'd use to one-shot Mistweaver Shields, Mistweaver Life Cocoons, or Dark Pact. And that's pretty much all of the notable talents. Now remember, you have a free one if you're not running the Deathwish Cheese, so you could do something like this, and then you could do something like this. You see, you have a lot of talents to choose with. If Slaughterhouse is perma, then you pretty much have 2 free PvP talents to choose, either Enduring Rage, Demolition for the shield break, Disarm against Frost DKs, or Arms Warriors on Warbreaker. Or if you just want a little bit of self-sustain, Battle Trance is pretty much perma. So there you go. That is Fury Warrior talents and gearing in a nutshell. The rotation is so comically easy, but people will ask, so I will tell you anyway. You have a Swifty one-shot macro, which is me pressing Rec and Avatar and my Orc Racial and a badge if I was running it, which I'm not. You charge in there, you press the Swifty one-shot macro, which subsequently gives you obscene rage generation, which allows you to press 1 Bloodthirst, immediately get a Rampage off. Odin's Fury, Thunderous Roar, these are massive cooldowns that you would press when they are stacked up as much as they can be. And then it's just Rampage, Bloodthirst, Bloodthirst, Rampage, Bloodthirst, Bloodthirst, Rampage, Bloodthirst, Bloodthirst, Rampage. It's really, that is actually it. You can add in Slam if you're running the comical Slam build, which, again, it will hit for 130k, and it is a generator, so it costs you nothing. It literally costs you nothing, and you can throw in a 130k hit in there if you are getting a crit and you are hitting a Clothy. But I mean, it's a generator. That's obscene. And then execute procs every time they come up. So you just charge in there, pop your Swifty, Bloodthirst, Bloodthirst, Rampage. It's exactly what I said, right? And then you can throw in major offensive cooldowns like Odin's Fury and another Rampage, Thunderous Roar, and an execute proc, and another Rampage, and a Bloodthirst, and a Rampage, and a blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's 2 buttons, all right? You got it. Good. Congratulations. That's it. It's Fury Warrior in a nutshell. Very simple. The gearing and talents I outlined here should serve you extremely well. I have had even luck doing the comical build to the point of I had 2 streamed 5-1s yesterday, and one of them whispered me and said, okay, fine, how do you do that? That was on stream. He said, well, how do you do that? And I told him. So now here's the video, and yeah, see you guys in the next one. I hope you had a good time, and I hope you have a good season. Peace.